Next, we will start with the bed knife grinder. The first thing you want to do is check the angle specs for the bed knife. Right now I am pointing at the spec sheet for the Toro 3150 T-reels. Right now I am changing the top angle to 13 degrees and the front face will be a 3-degree angle. These angles are set in spec by Toro and they give you the best quality of cut as well as best longevity of the bed knife. As you can see, I am doing this with an Allen key and the screw, which is a set screw, and I put it in the hole where it says 13 degrees and 3 degrees. This screw stops the machine on that exact degree, so the bed knife is ground on that degree by the grinder. Once that is set, I will set the bed knife and move it up to the guides that I'm putting up now, and then turn on the electromagnetic. Once the magnet is turned on, I can set the setters back down and the reel is ready to be lifted up on the rack, the bed knife is ready to be lifted up on the rack, and we will do the top angle first. The buttons I am pointing at right now is the electric magnet, the belt back and forth, the grinder turn on, and the speed of the belt going back and forth. Now, how I will set this up, just like the reel grinder, the right side is movable and the left side of the grinder is fixed. How I do this is I go off the screws on the bed knife just underneath it, and I line my grinder up with that and go until it touches. Then I move to the right side and I spin the grinder until it touches, and I move it with the knob on the far right of the grinding rack to bring it in. I do this process back and forth a few times to make sure it's right. Then I will set the grinder up and turn it on, and the red lever locks it onto the belt so it can move back and forth. Right now I was having a little bit of issues with the safety switch. The safety switch allows the machine to turn on when the top shield is closed. What I am looking forward here is a nice even grind all the way across. As you can see, there's a couple high and low spots on this reel, but overall the sparks and the grind is pretty consistent throughout. A nice way to tell your high and low spots is to take a Sharpie, like I'm doing right now, and run it along the bed knife to see any high or low spots. Any low spots will be left black, while the high spots will be ground off by the grinder and they will be bare metal. As you can see, it's a pretty consistent grind. And you manually infeed this grinder every so many rotations. Usually I do about 1/8 of a turn. And you can tell when to put it in as the sparks get a little less and the sound of the grinder goes down. Right now I am doing my cleanup pass, which I turn the machine down slower and infeed it one more time, just because it leaves a nice clean face of the bed knife on your last grind. Always remember to infeed the grinder while it's on the bed knife rather than in transition, as you can catch an edge if you go in too far while you're off the bed knife. Now I will move the grinder off to the side, turn it off, and check the edge with my thumb. Make sure it's consistent all the way across. Now I will move it down to do the front face. The setup for this front face is the exact same as the top face. The right side is movable and the left side of the rack is fixed, so you always start on the left side, then move to the right side. Once the shield is closed, the grinding process is the exact same as the top face. Remember to turn up your speed as it's turned down from your previous cleanup pass. Once you are done your last few passes, I check it with my finger again to make sure it's sharp before I pull it off the magnet. Once I am satisfied with the bed knife sharpened, I will disengage the electromagnetic and take the bed knife off. Now I am taking a chunk of wood and scraping it along the side of the bed knife to take the burr off so it's easier to set up. Now I will do the exact same process with my second bed knife. Once I am done, I always keep track of what bed knife goes on what reel, and I will start to put them back together. The process is the exact same, just opposite of how I took them apart. 2 nuts on either side, and the 2 nuts on the back that hold the bed knife in. It's always a good practice to put some anti-seize on these nuts, as the washing, water, grass, and sand from the greens and teas can get in there and make them a real tough nut to get out when you go to sharpen these next time. Once the bed knife is tightened in place into the reel, I will now start up my setup process. Setting the reel up is setting the reel to the bed knife so it cuts cleanly and evenly. Right now I am taking my adjustment T ratchet tool to tighten and loosen the adjustments on each left and right side of the reel. These nuts push the bed knife into the reel to get closer or further away as desired as you need it. So what I do is I take my ratchet and lefty loosey, righty tighty. So right now I am tightening the bed knife to the reel until I hear a little tiny bit of contact with the reel and bed knife. I do this left and right a few times. You want it to be even on each side, otherwise this can cause a bad quality of cut and also damage your reel and bed knife. When we talk about quality of cut, this is one of the main steps to get a good quality of cut. You want to basically hear the reel just barely nicking the bed knife, and then you want to mark off one blade on the reel, and this is the blade that you will cut your paper with so it's consistent. So right now I'm taking my paper, running it along the bed knife and moving the reel with my hand to cut the paper, and I want a nice even cut like scissors. Sometimes the paper will tear like you ripped it, and it will do that exact same thing to the grass. You do not want it to tear the grass, you want it to cut it nice and clean. This allows for better health of the plant, as well as less chance for the plant to get diseases, dry out, etc. I usually always like to go through a few pieces of paper to double check, and it is always a good idea never to rush this process. It takes time, and you want to make sure it's set up correctly. As I want, adjust it a few more times to make sure everything is into spec and it's cutting evenly all the way across. You always want to make sure you keep your fingers back a little bit, as these reels will cut you. You also want to make sure that your reel spins evenly. Now I am on to height of cut, or HOC. What I have in my hand is an Accu gauge. This hooks on to the top side of the bed knife and spans across your 2 rollers. What I am measuring now is the distance between the bottom of your rollers and your bed knife and reel. That's how high your grass will be cut. So our T reels are usually cut at 250, of an inch. And your height of cut will always change once you have ground or maintenance your reels, so it's a good idea to double check them and reset them. It's always a good idea to check both sides and spin your roller so you can see. These top nuts push the roller down or up. Up obviously has a lower height of cut, and if you're pushing your roller down, it will cause your height of cut to increase. This is one of the final steps to setting up your reel. And as I mentioned before, it is a good idea to take your time and not rush this process. There's an adjustment on the left and right side of the roller. Lefty loosey, righty tighty. Now John Deere reels are the actual opposite. Righty loosey, lefty tighty. So it's always a good idea to make sure you know what brand you're working on and what their specs are. This trick has gotten me before. But Toro, as we're working on right now, is normal. Lefty loosey, righty tighty. The nut I am tightening right now tightens the roller in place and locks in your height of cut, so it will not move once your reel is on the machine. As always, double check, spin your roller a few times to double check, and just like that, you're all done your reel grinding and setup. Last step is to write on the date that it was sharpened and set up, so you know for next time, as well as write in the new height of cut if it has changed. Thank you for watching this video, and this is reel grinding, bed knife grinding, and setup as well as height of cut. This reel is now ready to go. Thank you for watching.